Good day everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today it's going to be a bit of a fun one. This is the R3 T20 SPAA armoured car. Now, in the P40 review, you would have seen this thing as me referring to it as the meme car. Well, there's no other word for it. Because of its small size and similar to a scarab or like a grasshopper itself, I've nicknamed mine the grasshopper, but obviously it's really a meme car. So the car itself is very fast on most terrain. Now, desert terrain, I haven't tested it on. Snow terrain, it does alright. And everything else it does very well in. The car itself only weighs about 3 tons. It's got a very good horsepower to ton ratio. And body armor may seem good on the front, but there is a bit of a downside. Aluminium alloy 7039, from what I've been able to find, is only 50% effective. So, in the case of the front slope, which is 33mm thick, its effective thickness is 62. This is incorrect. The actual thickness is only about 16.5. So, take with that how you will. The armor will not save you at all. Shots that may seem that they won't penetrate will penetrate. At least I believe it is half effectiveness, but that's what I've been able to find. Armored glass, I am not certain, but there's only really one part on this vehicle that isn't aluminium alloy other than the gun itself, and that's this part here, which is 5mm thick, which isn't going to stop anything. But even so, this little car isn't about the armor, it's about the gun. So from what I've been able to find, this Orlikon KAD cannon is a 1980s cannon, and it certainly acts like one. It's got very high fire rate, very high turret traverse. I mean, some SPA will still out-traverse you, but it's still good nonetheless. Very high muzzle velocity, good penetration for the caliber of the gun, and overall the vehicle itself is just very mobile. The most speed I've gotten out of it in a straight line is 62 miles an hour. Reverse is not so good, it's only 4 miles an hour. That's one thing to take into account, your reverse is terrible to say how fast you can go forwards. But the cannon itself will take out most planes in a couple of shots. It can deal with a couple of tanks and vehicles effectively, and the replay is going to show this. So let's jump right in. So the one thing to take into account is the fact that your reverse speed is terrible and you only get one clip of ammunition. You get 600 rounds, but they do go rather quickly. And if you need to refill at cap point, it takes around 40 seconds, roughly, to actually get the ammo back in the vehicle, and then another 8 seconds to reload it. I suppose that's a nerf to the vehicle, but even so. Obviously, the whole battle I will not show because some bits are just me driving around like a muppet. But anyway, let's get into it. So, you can see straight away here, it is pretty fast already. Now, I do see some people using the cannon as a sort of speed boost. That can work, but you do drain your ammunition very quickly. Take that into account. Your max penetration is 40mm. The best belt, in my opinion, to use is the M6001 or M601. You get 2 APIT and a single HE. This is better for anti-tank work. If you want to use this thing as a proper meme car, drive around shooting up some tanks, obviously not all of them, use this belt. If you want to be a pure spag player, go for the upgraded belt, which is 2 HE, 1 APIT. I'm just going to skip ahead because obviously we're driving to the cap circle. You can see the speeds are very consistent across most terrain. We did about 30 miles an hour most of the way here. And for some strange reason, my teammate decides to ram me. I had no idea what his problem was. Clearly, he's in a BMW driving. He rams me again, and as you can tell there on his tank, well, his armored car's ammo box, he's Australian, so probably he was drinking a Foster's. now you can see there's a lot of tanks coming up. There's actually an SMK down there. Heavy tanks you cannot kill at all. You have some luck with the medium tanks, but don't engage T-34s, you cannot penetrate them at all. And overall, just use your speed and evacuate the area, like what I'm doing here. I also recommend avoiding Cromwells. Chaffies as well can be a bit of a bugger from the front, but if you get the side of a Chaffee, you can take it. And KV-1s are just a no-no. Never engage KV-1. Don't care how close it is to the end of the battle, do not engage a KV-1, you will not win. Same goes for the T-34, the armor's just thick enough. But obviously that's our first capture for the game. You can see there's an M8 HMC. I was thinking of charging him, but there's far too many enemy tanks in the cap circle. So I thought against it. This is how you have to play this thing. You have to play this thing really smartly. And just to make a point, if you steer this thing at high speed, this thing will roll over. It is very susceptible to rolling over. If you fire the cannon on its side, it is very susceptible to flipping over as well. And especially, do not fire on the move when the gun is like that right now, on the side. This vehicle will flip. The brakes also lock when you hit the brakes at high speed, so you can skid to a stop, but whilst it may look like you're being in a Japanese drifting animes, it's not fun when you may roll the vehicle in doing so. Now that KV-1 took a pot shot at us there, but because of our high speed and we kept moving, he missed. And this is another tactic to avoid enemy fire. Start swerving in the bushes. That way you don't drive in a straight line and they will not be able to hit you most of the time. Stuka just went in there and suicide bombed, I believe. Got 2 kills out of it. Took out the SMK and a KV-1. Whilst the Chaffee shot him down. I'd take that personally. 2 of the most dangerous enemy tanks on the enemy team removed. Just like that. Now aircraft are also a threat to you. 20mm cannon fire can penetrate the side very easily. 50 caliber fire will shred you, on the sides at least. The frontal armor, whilst it's reduced because of the modifier, should be sufficient to stop most shells that come at the vehicle in terms of aircraft. I forgot to also mention at this point, we are actually in mud. Mud is probably this thing's worst enemy. Because of the small weight of the vehicle, the small weight or the small size of the tyres, and just overall the vehicle itself, it's just not meant for that. Here comes a Yak 9. I do get some hits there, but didn't really kill him. And there we go, first air kill. One important thing to note as well, artillery is very easily able to kill you, since your armor thickness on the side is technically, if we take into account the modifier, 7.5mm. That's pretty bad, isn't it? When a 30 cal can lay waste you from the side. 50 cals especially. So do take this into account. Obviously now we're going over slight mud, so this is where this vehicle will struggle. You can already see mud gathering on the front of the vehicle. I did take a couple of shots at this Hawk. Unfortunately, an M42 beat me to the trigger. Well, beat me to the shots. And there's the Yak 9T. Now at this point I believe I was missing the artillery module, the elevation mechanism, the transmission, suspension and the tyres. And here you can see I'm turning only slightly and this vehicle is susceptible to rolling over at that point. Fire a short burst, took out the Yak-9T, second air kill. Just overall, I'm really a fan of this vehicle. I was laughing my ass off most of the time driving this thing. I say most of the time. Do not engage Russian vehicles unless they are lightly armoured, such as BT-7s and, for example, the Su-76 on the enemy team. Just don't engage them. And here you can see I nearly rolled it there. This vehicle is very vulnerable to rolling over. That's probably one of its main weaknesses. That's why if you ever watched Napalm Rates, or how do you say it? I can never say it. Napalm Rats, as I call him. Video about the cruise or the assisted control of a wheeled vehicle. I will leave a link to the description below, and that will give you a benefit. I don't use it myself because I find wheeled vehicles to be perfectly adequate in most situations, but for those that may struggle with vehicles like this, I recommend using it. I'm used to driving wheeled vehicles now. I've only had this thing roll on me once, and that time Dark Angel had to come to my rescue. Obviously the capture point's up here now. We're currently heading towards it. And we just got to take into consideration the overall point here. Because obviously there's enemy vehicles moving up. I can barely kill half of them. Do spot that LA5. There is actually a Sherman in the capture point at this point, but that Stug is currently dealing with it. I move in to try and give the Stug a hand, but the Sherman's just been detonated. So now we're about to get our second capture of the game. Obviously I spot the LA5 fully this time, and I'm starting to keep track of him. The cannon is very hard to predict where it's going to go in terms of shell. It does take some practice. Obviously a BTR has started taking pot shots at me. There's artillery fire being dropped, so I thought, I need to get out of here. Let's use the high speed and get out of here. If you can hear the BTR over to the wall over behind us, don't worry, we'll come back for him. I promise you that. So obviously now I'm speeding off, and I start driving towards our spawn because obviously there is a T-34. He's just died, but now I spot this M10. M10s are very easy to kill. Just watch that 50 cal. It can tear you to pieces. This poor sod never knew what hit him. I shred him to pieces, take out most of his crew. That shot actually hit the cannon itself. I was lucky it didn't hit the hull there. That BTR anyway. Now obviously I'm beginning my flank. One other important thing to use is bushes as cover. There's almost a rollover there. Use bushes as cover and just be unpredictable for your enemies. Now, funnily enough, there is a tank or an armoured vehicle on the enemy team that I will be doing a review at some point. The M15A1 CGMC. But sadly, we have to deal with it, so... Now at this point I spot the Sherman, and I thought the Sherman was going to spot me, so that's why I basically held position here. However, Sherman players being blind as a bat as they usually are, he didn't spot me in the bushes. And you can penetrate a Sherman's side, people, but you have to be very close, like this close, to have a chance. So I pull up alongside the Sherman and prepare for a drive-by, people. But now I'm going to slow it down to halfway, so I tear the Sherman's inside apart. There's the kill on the Sherman. There's a BTR, who has not seen me. I start to butcher his vehicle, and there we go, crew knocked out. M15 approaches from the right, who doesn't see us. But now he does, but it's far too late. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a triple kill. And as you can imagine, I type in A clear. And also triple kill booyah, because it's not very often you get a triple kill in this thing and live to tell the tale. But I think it's safe to say the enemy team was rather annoyed about that. But obviously, I've now sped off, they can't catch up. And even then, if they came back in the plane, I would shred them. I do take a couple of shots at his Peshka, but he was already dead. I do actually get a hit on him, but I didn't get any credit in terms of points or anything like that. And that's pretty much the end of the match. The only other interesting thing that happens is that I actually run out of ammunition at one point. And that's pretty much it. So what do I think of this thing? Well, if you haven't played this thing or driven it, it is very fun. Just take into account you do not get a reload. To reload, you have to go back to the capture points, and it takes about 40 to 45 seconds to actually get the ammo boxes back in the vehicle, and then an additional 8 seconds to reload. So you're basically out for a minute, and you have to sit still in the capture zone. That is one thing to take into account. Otherwise, this thing is an absolute joy to drive. Just like I say, I will link Napalm's short tutorial video in the description below. So if you need any advice, or if you need a help against wheeled vehicles, then that will help you out, because, well, there's no other word for it. Wheeled vehicles can be a nightmare at times. And as you saw, I nearly rolled this thing 2 or 3 times. But anyway, if I'd heavily advise getting this vehicle, it is a lot of fun. Just don't shoot up Russian tanks. Whatever you do, do not shoot up Russian tanks, because they will shred you, and you can't do anything to them. Most of the time. If it was the ZIS-12 AA truck that you can encounter, you'll shred it easily. But just remember, he can do the same to you. Anyway, that's it for today, and I will catch you all on the next one.